30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you on a Tuesday afternoon on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel with breaking news powered by BetUS. Breaking news out of the NFL. Breaking news out of the AFC East. Breaking news in terms of the Bills' interdivisional matchup this upcoming Monday evening. Robert Saleh can, as the head coach of the New York Jets. Out of all of the times that I felt like this could have happened, this feels like one of the oddest times. And sure as hell, it has to happen the week the Bills are taking on the Jets. Can you believe it? This just in about 20 minutes ago, via Adam Schefter and the rest of the NFL gang, the Jets have informed Robert Saleh of their decision. There will be a new head coach for Monday night's game versus the Buffalo Bills. That new head coach will be the defensive coordinator. The New York Jets defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, is being named the Jets interim head coach. He will get his first crack at leading the team Monday evening in MetLife under the lights against the Buffalo Bills. I'm very interested to know. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts not only on the firing, but your thoughts on when this firing has occurred, how it's going to impact the Bills. Let's start right there because first and foremost, what we care about most is how things around the NFL impact the Buffalo Bills. I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all in terms of momentum, in terms of vibe going into the game. If you remember a couple weeks back, and you probably don't because it was just a random segment that Rico and I did, but we predicted games a couple of weeks ago. It was going into the Panthers game where they had just benched Bryce Young. And Rico and I were doing our predictions, and the Panthers have been the worst team in football for the last season and a half. They've barely won a game. And we were doing our predictions, and I said, I'm predicting the Carolina Panthers to beat the Las Vegas Raiders simply because Andy Dalton's coming in to start. This team has been defeated under Bryce Young, not only, of course, on the field, but mentally. They're drained. They know every time they've gone out there with Bryce Young, their chances of winning are next to none. They were playing as such. I saw someone in the comment section say it earlier, and it's the best way to put it. It's the dead cat bounce. That's what everybody refers to this as. Whenever there's a major firing or a major decision made on a football team, there seems to be that spark for the organization. Whether that's the firing of a head coach, the benching of a quarterback, the firing of a GM, the selling of a team, for instance, for the Commanders, that rejuvenates that entire franchise and their fan base. That's a broader one, but you know what I mean. Every time there's a major decision such as this, it feels like it sparks the franchise. And ultimately, that's the reason why the franchise does it in the first place. You don't fire your head coach in the middle of a season in which you were projected to be the AFC East favorite and a Super Bowl contender. This is what kills me the most, and this is why I've had the take that I've had on the Jets since the beginning. When they first brought in Aaron Rodgers and the narrative instantly became, we're going from a bottom feeder who hasn't made the playoffs in well over a decade to a Super Bowl contender, I said, how? Where are you getting this narrative? This was going into last year. Then to add insult to injury, to dump a pound of salt into the wound. Aaron Rodgers, coming off a mediocre year in Green Bay, instantly tears his Achilles, out for the year. Then going into this year, the narrative only got stronger. The Jets going into this year were favored to win the AFC East before the season started. And they were one of the top 8 teams in the betting market in terms of being favored to win the Super Bowl. I said, how? Where is this coming from? Above anything else, I guess at this point, does this not prove the current state of the New York Jets? Are people finally waking up to the idea that the New York Jets are not the team everybody told you that they were? We played that clip a couple of weeks ago after they beat the Patriots on Thursday Night Football, and everybody came back to the forefront of that narrative right after they beat perhaps the worst team in football right now, the New England Patriots, right after they beat New England. Jets are back. Rodgers is back. What a game from Saleh. We are now 2 weeks removed from that. Not even, I don't think. A week and a half removed from that. Robert Saleh is fired mid-season. Now, we see firings mid-season all the time. I feel like it's rare you see a firing 5 weeks into the year. And what's crazy to me about this, above the fact that it's happening the week of the Bills game, because of course it is, the aspect of this team in which Robert Saleh was mainly in charge of, the reason why he became the head coach, the defense, it's been one of the best in the league. Benjamin Solik on Twitter tweeted out about 20 minutes ago that since the 2021 season, Robert Saleh has been first in points per drive defensively, first in EPA per play, third in success rate. The defense has been extraordinary. Nobody knows that more than us Bills fans. But Benjamin would go on to say they never solved the quarterback problem, but he delivered on defense. No truer words could be spoken. This team was supposed to be rejuvenated into a Super Bowl contender because of the addition of Aaron Rodgers. Yet the firing, the guy who's thrown to the wolves, is the guy up until this point who has delivered on the promise. Now, should Robert Saleh be the head coach of the New York Jets right now? Probably not. Was he going to get fired regardless? The way that this season's been going for the Jets, it seemed all but inevitable. But I think firing him 5 weeks into the season, firing him after a game in which in the second half, that defense completely shut down Sam Darnold and the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. Aaron Rodgers, this is crazy. Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions in that game on Sunday morning in London. 3 interceptions, tied for his career high in a game. One of them was a pick six. One of them was on the drive to go and tie the ball game. They were down in scoring territory. Aaron Rodgers throws a pick. Robert Saleh is the one thrown to the wolves for it. Despite the fact that defense, I don't even know if they allowed a point in the second half. I know they allowed 6 points, I believe. 6 points in the second half. Let me double check. Yes. It was the Minnesota Vikings were up 17-7 at half. The Jets defense allowed 6 points in the entire second half. Aaron Rodgers threw 3 picks. And like I mentioned, one of them was a pick six, and one of them was on the final drive. The Jets defense in that game against the Vikings, they allowed what? 16 points? Enough to win the football game. Yet Robert Saleh, in week 5, is the man that gets thrown to the wolves and gets the blame. Now, like I said, don't get it twisted. Robert Saleh, it was all but inevitable. The Jets were going to have to make a move. And Aaron Rodgers even said it himself before the season started. If we don't get it done this year, I'm gone. Saleh's gone. GM's gone. That was all but inevitable. And I'm not sitting here trying to defend the fact that Robert Saleh should be a head coach in this league or he should be the head coach of the New York Jets. But I'll sit here today and defend Robert Saleh in week 5. This is insane to me. And this is 100% because of the influence that Aaron Rodgers has on this team. And it would be a lot different. It would be a lot different if Aaron Rodgers had come into this year and played up to the MVP caliber in which everyone was telling you he was going to, and had that offense up to the standard in which everyone told you was going to be Super Bowl ready. They could not be further from the opposite of that. I will sit here today and defend Robert Saleh in this moment. This makes no sense to me. The day of this firing makes no sense to me. And it just adds insult to us, to me at least, because it's the week of the Bills game. Because as I was talking about a couple of minutes ago, that dead cat bounce, the Jets are going to get that this week. Now, should they be inspired by the fact that the only bright spot of this team so far just lost their lead man? I mean, it's almost counterintuitive. Robert Saleh ran this defense. You now have the defensive coordinator of the Jets taking over. Is anything going to be different? It tells you a couple things. One, Aaron Rodgers, as we already knew, he's the one running the ship over there. And two, of course, Nathaniel Hackett wasn't going to be the interim head coach because everybody knows he's not fit to be an offensive coordinator. He got instantly canned in Denver. Aaron Rodgers had to have him in New York. Had to have him. The only reason that Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets is because of Aaron Rodgers. Yet the defensive aspect of this team, the strong suit of this team, the head coach in that aspect gets fired. The defensive coordinator gets promoted to interim head coach. The offensive coordinator is so inept that he can't be the one to step up to the call in the interim position. And the offense is still as inadequate as it's ever been. I mean, you go ahead and look at the list of games that the Jets have played thus far. Of course, they got destroyed by the Niners in week 1. Nothing looked good for the Jets in week 1. Defense was awful week 1. So was the offense. They scored 19 points. The Jets this season have yet to crack 24 points. That is their single game high this year, 24 points. That has gotten them to their 2-3 record. 24 points was good enough to get them 2 W's. Against the Titans, which they arguably could have lost if Will Levis just played a mediocre football game. That was the game where Will Levis pitched it backwards on the Jets' 10-yard line, and it seemed to completely flip the game, the momentum of the football game. 24 points, Jets win that one 24-17. And then, of course, the 24-3 victory over the Patriots where everybody was trying to tell you once again, they're back. Rodgers back to MVP form. Just wait. He hasn't had enough time to get developed. It's only the beginning. Here's what this defense has done so far. They allowed 17 points to the Titans. They allowed 3 points to the Patriots. They allowed 10 points to the Denver Broncos and still lost. They lost that game 10-9. They allowed 10 points and lost. And then this past weekend, where you're down 17-3 at half, you shut down the Vikings entirely in the second half. Aaron Rodgers throws 3 picks, and this is the time you decide to fire him? Man, this is shocking. Now, like I said, him being fired in totality, that's not shocking. The time in which this is occurring, especially on the Tuesday, no less, this is shocking to me. And it feels like it's just one last attempt to save face for the Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets. Now, Red, White, and Bills is saying something completely accurate here, and I don't disagree with this at all. Well, but Saleh is the head coach, not the DC, and he's a bad head coach. Yeah, I'm not defending that. I'm not defending. Like I said, the writing was on the wall. Saleh was going to be gone. I'm talking about the timing here. The timing here, to me, just makes no sense. This defense, he said they would right the ship. He said this defense will be better following the week 1 blowout against the San Francisco 49ers. They've been exactly that. Now, Robert Saleh is not fit to be a head coach in this league right now. But the unfortunate reality for Jets fans is that nobody has been fit to be the head coach of the New York Jets for the last decade and a half. Ever since Rex Ryan left these Jets, they have been one of the worst teams in the entire league. They currently have the longest playoff drought in the National Football League. This, to me, is one last attempt to save the face of the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets. Because you can't bench Rodgers, of course. You can't fire Nathaniel Hackett. The firing today that would have made the most sense would have been firing Nathaniel Hackett. But they can't do that because that, of course, would piss off Rodgers, and that's the last thing that this organization wants to do. They have gone so far out of their way to appease Aaron Rodgers, it's almost terrifying. I could not imagine dealing with this in Buffalo. You know, I'm seeing in the comments right now, when are we getting rid of Sean? When's the next breaking news coming in to fire Sean McDermott? It's not even it's not even comparable. The situation in New York to the situation in Buffalo, it is apples to oranges. It's not even remotely comparable. Sean McDermott has been one of the best coaches in the NFL over the time span in which the New York Jets have been one of the worst teams in football. You want to fire Sean McDermott because of the situational moments where they lose games that they should win. But they've won the majority of all their football games. They're the second winningest team in the NFL in the last 5 years under McDermott. I understand the frustration with McDermott, but comparing this situation is nuts to me. Nobody has been adequate to coach these New York Jets, including Robert Saleh. But it's the timing in this moment right now, to me, that absolutely makes no sense. It makes no sense. Now let's talk about the impact this has on the Bills. I'm interested to see right now. Let's go check. On BetUS just a couple of days ago, actually immediately following the Bills' loss to the Texans and the Jets' loss to the Vikings, the Bills opened up as a 2.5-point favorite on the road in Monday Night Football. I am interested to see if the line on this game has moved because of this announcement. And what do you know? Of course it has. Of course it has. The line has already shifted a full point on BetUS. The Bills were a 2.5-point favorite about 24 hours ago. They are now a 1.5-point favorite on the road this upcoming Monday night. I wouldn't be shocked if that continues to drop. So you're already seeing it reflected in the betting market. And if you've been watching the NFL as long as I know you have, you know that these things are true. The dead cat bounce is a real thing. I mean, don't you even remember last year when the Bills were playing the Chargers, who at that point in the year might have been the worst team in the league just based on how many injuries they had and how incompetent the organization was being ran up until that point? Do you remember the week the Bills were playing the Chargers? They fired their GM, they fired Brandon Staley, and they decided to keep Justin Herbert sidelined for the rest of the year because he was injured and it wasn't worth putting him back out there. The Bills went out there and played a first-time head coach, a new GM, and Easton Stick. And that game came down to the final drive of the football game. Despite how bad the personnel was for the Chargers at that time, there was rejuvenation. Everyone knew Brandon Staley was inevitably going to get fired. He got fired that week. The Chargers were a quarter of the football team the Bills were. But in that football game, they had played their best game in weeks, arguably because of the spark that the team had gotten from the firings within the organization that felt like they needed to happen. And now you're seeing it here on BetUS. Already a point dropped thus far compared to where it was before this firing. Real quick shout out, by the way, once again, BetUS with the lines, 150% sign up bonus, up to $2,000 on your first deposit using the promo code YouTube150. That'll also get you 125% bonus on your next two deposits after that. The Bills still remain the overwhelming favorite to win the AFC East, but this line has dropped for Monday night. And now we wonder, what's this impact going to be on the Jets this week? This game is a little over a week away. It's on a Monday night. The Jets now have a full week to prepare. Well, they've had a full week to prepare, but they still have essentially a full week to prepare with interim head coach, the defensive coordinator of the Jets, Jeff Ulbrich. What's the impact on the Jets going to be? It seemed clear and obvious that Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers did not see eye to eye. I think that seemed quite clear to the naked eye. You could just see that there was not chemistry there. There was that video that came out of Rodgers on the sideline during the Patriots game where Saleh was all pumped up and Rodgers pushes him off of him. You remember the clip. You remember in this offseason, part of me, I'm not going to lie to you. Robert Saleh was always going to be fired unless this team did what they were never going to do this year, and that's make a deep playoff run. But there's part of me that feels bad for him right now because in the offseason, this guy had to go to the podium and essentially take all the arrows for Aaron Rodgers missing whatever it was, OTAs or camp, because he was out in Egypt doing ayahuasca or whatever the hell was going on there. Don't you remember? That was the biggest storyline in the league for weeks when Rodgers missed the opening of, I forget if it was either OTAs or camp, one or the other. I think it was camp. And Robert Saleh had to go out and say it was an unexcused absence and this and that. Then there was that whole downfall or whatever because of the dichotomy that was created because of that. Why did Robert Saleh say it was unexcused? Is there a feud between Rodgers and Saleh because of that? So he has to go out and take the arrows for Rodgers just flat out missing camp to go on vacation. And now, 5 weeks into the year, where let's just go ahead and take a real quick look at what Rodgers' stats are coming off that 3-pick game. This is Aaron Rodgers' stat line so far through the year. 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, with an 81 passer rating. Let's see how many points the Jets are averaging on offense currently. Once again, I'm not sitting here defending Robert Saleh remaining the head coach of the New York Jets. I'm defending him in the moment in which we're currently watching him be fired. I don't understand the timing of it. I just don't get it. Right now, the New York Jets, offensively, let me pull it up. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 24th in the league in terms of scoring offense. They're averaging just over 18 points a game. That is with Aaron Rodgers. This was supposed to be the key that was going to twist open and unlock the Super Bowl contending Jets. The defense, we've always known what the defense was. Robert Saleh was not fit to be a head coach, as Red, White, and Bill said earlier. He wasn't. It just never felt right. Him up at the podium, it always felt awkward. It always felt like he had to defend for somebody. I can't wait to find out if we ever do how much he really had to go out there and just say things he didn't truly mean in pursuit of just essentially making it look better than it was. Because Aaron Rodgers is on the team. Nathaniel Hackett still has to remain the offensive coordinator. You're bringing in random guys off the street because Rodgers wants to play with them. There's part of me that feels a bit bad for Saleh because of the moment in which this is happening. He's being blamed for the start to the year the Jets have had, which is 2-3. You could argue up until this point, despite the head coaching flaws, he has not been the overwhelming reason as to why this team hasn't succeeded through 5 weeks. This offense is they're in the bottom quarter of the league. 24th with 18 points per game. Like I mentioned earlier, they lost a football game. They lost a football game in which the opponent scored 10 points. With Aaron Rodgers. In this past weekend, they had an entire second half to win the football game. And that defense shut down, completely eliminated any impact the Vikings offense had on the game. Rodgers throws 3 picks. And this just, to me, this is another reason why it just feels like it's saving face for the Rodgers-led Jets. How, after a game in which Rodgers ties his career high in single-game interceptions, in a game in which you allow 6 points defensively in the second half, 16 points collectively defensively in the entire game, how is this the moment you then decide to fire your defensive coordinator-oriented head coach and then fill in the blank with your DC as the interim? I can't wait to dive into the internet after we're done here and just see what the pulse is from Jets fans. I know the buddies that I have that are Jets fans, they're excited about the idea of Saleh no longer being the coach because of how abysmal it's been under him. But it has been abysmal under anybody who has attempted to coach this organization since I was about in middle school. I am now a married man. That's how long it's been since the Jets have been anything close to relevant, regardless of who's coached this football team. Rex Ryan has been in the studio for ESPN for how long now? That's the last time the Jets were any bit relevant, when he was the head coach. Firing him in week 5 after Aaron Rodgers throws 3 picks, to me, is laughable. And it can only be chalked up to trying to make it seem like it's somebody else's fault through 5 weeks, other than the ineptitude of the New York Jets offense. Super chat coming in from Tyler Marshall. What do you think happens to McDermott if we get ripped? Well, see, that's a hell of a question. It's a hell of a question. You know where I stand. The idea of McDermott getting fired in week 6 would be 10 times more shocking to me than Robert Saleh being fired here in week 5. And I think this is somewhat shocking. But that's also including the fact that we knew at some point Robert Saleh was more than likely losing his job. Right? But I don't mind the question you're asking here. What happens? I don't know. I never will anticipate a midseason firing for these Bills. Last year, they already had a midseason firing at offensive coordinator. Obviously, Joe Brady's not going anywhere midseason because they're not even going to give him a full year. That's not happening. Bobby Babich isn't going anywhere in his first year, especially the way the defense has been playing with the personnel that they have to play with. And I think we know that Terry Pagula is not firing. He's not firing McDermott midseason. I don't think he's firing him in general. Midseason to me, that's not even in the question. It would stun me beyond belief. But the question you're asking is a fair one. This game just got that much more, not only interesting, of course, but this game has gotten that much more important, in my opinion, for the Bills. Because if the Bills go out Monday night, here's what's already on the line, despite what we're watching unfold here with the Saleh firing in New York. What's on the line here is a pretty significant swing of the totem pole in terms of the AFC East. I think we have pretty much written in stone at this point. We have written in stone at this point that the Patriots, that was never in question. And it certainly isn't today, and nor will it be next week or 10 weeks from now. The Dolphins are terrible. They are awful. Without Tua, that has been one of the worst teams in the league offensively. Right now, I know I mentioned to you just a minute ago, the Jets have the 24th overall scoring offense. Folks, the Miami Dolphins have the 32nd overall scoring offense. The Miami Dolphins have the worst offense in football in 2024. They are averaging 12 points per game. 12 points. The Patriots are 31st in the NFL. Two of the bottom two offenses in this league are both in the AFC East. 12 points per game from the Dolphins, 12.4 points per game for the Patriots. The New York Jets aren't far from that. And the Jets aren't the one with their quarterback concussed. The Jets aren't the ones starting Jacoby Brissett while they wait for their rookie quarterback to potentially take over and start things. The Jets aren't the one with a rookie head coach. And they're a stone's throw away from being in the same camp as the Dolphins and the Patriots offensively. So my point was, we have written in stone that the Patriots have no chance. And I think it's fair to say that we can write in stone right now that the Dolphins aren't crawling back from this. You saw the graphic earlier. Currently, the Dolphins are plus 700 to win the East. They would have to have a significant resurgence if and when Tua comes back to full strength. A significant resurgence. Because as it stands right now, with the Dolphins being, what are they? 2-3 themselves? The Dolphins right now, sitting at 2-3, would have to come out and be one of the best teams in football with the return of Tua in order for them to compete for the division or anything to do with a playoff spot. And I think that we can all probably agree that's not likely. Seeing that last year, when this healthy Miami Dolphins team had a 3-game lead in the division, could not win it. You're expecting them to even compete for it without Tua scoring 12 points per game? No. This division, as we already know, telling you nothing new here. It comes down to the Bills and the Jets. That is why Monday night, despite it only being week 6, is a playoff feeling type game because of how much the pendulum swings. If the Bills win, they'll improve to 4-2. The Jets will fall to 2-4. The Bills will be 2-0 in the East, and the Bills will have a 1.5 game lead on the Jets going into week 7. Should the Bills lose, however, both teams will be 3-3. Both teams will be 1-1 in the division. And with the head-to-head, the Jets will have a half-game lead on the Bills in the East. Now you're adding in the element that Tyler just brought up here. What do you think happens to McDermott if we get ripped? If the Bills go in after getting absolutely smoked by the Ravens, and absolutely pissing down their leg against the Texans to MetLife and lose to an interim head coach that's averaging 18 points a game offensively right now? You think the questions right now are blaringly loud? I don't even want to know. And that's why people are asking in the comments. People are asking in the comments currently if it's a must-win game. I'll leave it up to you. But to me, that sounds about as must-win as it can get. That sounds about as must-win as it can get. The difference in seeding, of course, and in the difference, of course, in the ability to win the East changes dramatically. But the overall, beyond anything, the overall imagery of it. How bad does that look if the Bills lose 3 straight and the third loss of that 3-game losing streak comes against a team that just fired their head coach? A team that has just been not good through 5 weeks. This adds a lot more pressure to me to the Bills, and this is why I hate the timing of this. Not only do I not understand the timing of this, I hate the timing of this. Because it has to happen right before the Bills game. And put your bias aside. You know that every time this happens, the team gets some sort of energy from it. Whether it's major or minor, it's energy nonetheless that they didn't have prior to it. I don't love it at all. This game was already a major game for both teams. It just got that much bigger, and I think it just got that much bigger for the Bills. Despite the fact the firing has nothing to do with them, because like Tyler just kind of brought up there, what's it going to look like if the Bills go out and lose to an interim head coach in his first game in a divisional spot where 2 weeks ago they were 3-0 and now you blink and they're 3-3? It feels about as must win as you can have a game B in week 6. It's a statement game for McDermott and the Buffalo Bills coming up on Monday night. Richie Fresh coming in. I'll tell you something right now. If the Bills get hosed, let's say 31-10 or 27-10, McDermott has to go. Sorry, not sorry. I'll tell you what, Richie, if the Bills lose 31-10 or 27-10 to the Jets, who have not scored more than 24 points all year, if they lose in that fashion Monday night, I have no defense for anybody anymore. I have no defense for anybody anymore. You will not see me come on here on Tuesday afternoon or whenever I join you after that game. You will not see me come on here and defend anybody in any capacity if the Bills find a way to lose to the Jets in the fashion in which you are referring to. And if the chips fall the way that they fall, and that results in something that I don't foresee happening, but results in something that is a major change somewhere within the organization, yeah, I don't know how anybody could sit there and defend it, and I wouldn't either. That's why you're adding a lot more pressure to this game, in my opinion. Because I think that might be on the line. Now, the idea of the Jets scoring 31 or 27 to me is preposterous at this point. They just can't do it. They can't. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing well. This offense isn't playing well. The only thing that's been the bright spot about this team so far through 5 weeks has been the defense. That's really been the only bright spot about this team for the last 10, 15 years. That's why the timing of this just makes zero sense to me. But of course, it just once again feels like one of those Billsian things where it makes no sense, but of course it happens in the mix of when the Bills have to play these guys. And I don't like the idea of that at all. I just don't. And on a Tuesday, no less either. Why wasn't this done yesterday? Usually when you're making a firing of this magnitude, you do it the Monday after, something happens. But the reality is really nothing happened. You're also doing it coming back from London too. I don't know what happened on Sunday to pin enough blame on Saleh to cause a firing on Tuesday. And you don't do it Monday. You wait a whole other day to drop it less than a week before your next game. I don't know. This is very confusing to me. Bartek coming in. He goes, I'm terrified we've seen teams fire the head coach and then win the next game. Yeah, we beat the Chargers, but look how close it was. Jets defense is elite. Exactly right. That's what I mentioned earlier, BT. Last year, once again, the Chargers, they fire their GM, they fire their head coach, and then they bench, or not bench, but they sideline Herbert for the year because he was already hurt, and they said they threw their hands up in the air essentially and said, we're taking it into 2024. We're done here. And they went out and played Easton Stick, the Bills did, and it was bad. They came all the way down to the final drive, and the Bills barely pulled it out. But if memory serves me correctly, the Bills kicked a game-winning field goal with very little time left to win that game. This 100% adds some sort of fuel to the Jets. You can determine how much you feel like it does. If the gas tank was empty, you yourself can determine how much fuel you think is added to that empty tank. But I think it's unarguable that at the very minimum, at least some gas is put into that tank. And you never want any added advantage to an opponent when you're playing them. And I think anytime something like this happens, it is the advantage to the team that makes the major change. And you know for a fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to want to go out and prove that it was Saleh's fault, despite the fact that he just threw 3 interceptions in a ball game in which they lost and easily could have won had he had just played better. You know he's going to want to go out Monday night against the team that ended his season last year 4 snaps in the same setting, under the lights, Monday Night Football, in MetLife. He's going to want to go out and play the best game he's ever played. Now, if he's capable of that or not, that's the question. I don't know if he is. That remains to be seen. I don't personally think he is, knock on wood, because, of course, wouldn't it just be so fitting if it wound up showing its head against the Bills in primetime off of the firing of their head coach? But you know for a fact, not only would Rodgers want to go out and prove something against the team that this all happened against last year, the team that they're currently aware is the one standing in their way towards winning the East. Not only did he already have enough fuel, in my opinion, to go out and play a great game, he's going to want to go out and prove, yeah, it was Saleh all along. Look at us now. Saleh's gone. A week later, we just beat the 4 consecutive reigning champion AFC East Buffalo Bills. It adds more for the Jets, and I hate the fact that this is happening this week. I don't hate it enough to sit here and say I think the Jets are going to win the football game, but I certainly hate it enough to let you know that it's factoring into the game, in my opinion. And anytime there's any factor that benefits the other opponent, I'm out on it. How could you not be? This is why I hate it. Signified coming in. Sorry, guys, but Terry Pagula doesn't have the courage to fire McDermott. He doesn't want us to be the Buffalo Sabres. I don't know if it's courage. I don't know. I think it might be more to the fact that in referencing the Sabres, Terry Pagula owns both. The Bills have been going like this ever since he bought the Sabres and the Bills. The Bills have been going like this, and the Sabres have been going either like this or like this. Nowhere in between. Not even close to anything like this. Right? He's had a lot of good things going with the Bills. So to your point, I understand what you're saying. Why mess things up right now? Right? But I don't know if it's courage. I think he looks at it and says the Bills have been one of the best teams in football under McDermott. I'm not going to fire him in the middle of the season. I think if there was ever going to be a firing, maybe it was either going to happen in 2 capacities. I've told you this. I never thought it was going to happen after last year, but a lot of people thought that could be the tipping point. It wasn't. Another loss to the Chiefs in the divisional in a close game. That wasn't the breaking point. I told you that I felt if there ever was going to be a breaking point, it was going to be this team missing the playoffs and looking really bad while doing it. So if the Bills continue to look like they have against the Texans and the Ravens, and they wind up being on the outside end of the playoffs, or they get smoked in the wild card after just barely making it in, then the conversation, of course, certainly needs to be had. But I don't think anything happens up until that point. But regardless of whether or not anything actually does happen or not, I don't think it's even arguable. The seat for McDermott starts getting pretty damn hot if he loses to the Jets Monday night. It's already hot to some degree. Have you been online recently? Because if you have, and you've looked at anything to do with the Buffalo Bills fan base, 90% of everything you're seeing is fire McDermott, fire McDermott, fire McDermott. A couple of fire Bean in there, a couple of those, right? There's been a lot of calling for McDermott's head after the last 2 weeks. Imagine what it would be a week from today if the Bills are sitting here at 3-3 after losing to the Jets. I don't think a firing happens, but the fire lit under the seat goes from maybe lighting a lighter to maybe lighting a furnace. Tyler coming back in. There's so many head coach candidates, or so many good head coach candidates out there. I don't know. It all depends. It all depends on what happens. I don't see it happening midseason. I mean, Belichick's not coming in and coaching a team midseason. That's not happening. You're not going to get the Ben Johnsons of the world midseason. And then what are you going to do? Right now, to me, the biggest problem the last 2 weeks, personally, has been Joe Brady. You're not going to promote him to interim head coach. This is the other thing you got to think about. This right here should probably tell you all you need to know in terms of whether or not the Bills are going to do anything in the middle of the season here. Are the Bills going to promote first-time defensive coordinator Bobby Babich to interim head coach? I think that would be nuts. Are the Bills going to promote Joe Brady as interim head coach without a full year of being the offensive coordinator of the Bills? I think that would be nuts. Those are your options, essentially, unless they want to go somewhere deep into the weeds and promote somebody else. But typically the guy who gets promoted is either the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator. Right now, your options are two guys in their first full year at the position for the Bills. That should probably tell you all you need to know right there, that nothing's going to be happening in the middle of the season unless this thing falls off of a cliff the size of Mount Everest. But, like I just got through saying, the seat, and in terms of the warmth of it, I got no argument against that. None. I just don't see anything happening in the middle of the season. And that right there, I think, should tell you probably all you need to know. I think it would be stunning beyond belief. The other thing, too, it would also be stunning to think the Bills would be any better with Bobby Babich or Joe Brady being the head coach in the middle of the year. It's not, the grass isn't always greener. Even if right now the grass isn't neon green, even if it's not lush green grass like you hoped it would be or you thought it was through the first 3 weeks, it's certainly not dirt. It's certainly not browned out grass that's completely dead. The grass is not always greener, and in my opinion, right now, mid-season, anything to do with McDermott would be far from further greening the grass. I think it would go more towards browning it, killing it. Richie Fresh coming in. We also have to get out of the grateful mindset of ending the drought. Enough is enough. He got us this far, but I'm done. Sorry, I'm fired up. No pun. No, I get it, Richie. But I don't think the mindset today should not be the Jets fired Robert Saleh, so now let's talk about the Bills firing Sean McDermott. That's not how I see this. I just don't see the correlation here. X doesn't equal Y in this situation. Because the Jets made a firing doesn't mean we all of a sudden turn the page and start talking about why we need to fire McDermott. I understand those conversations that were already being had, but this doesn't further the conversation to me. The Jets have been one of the worst teams in football. The Bills have been one of the best. It's polar opposite. I know a lot of people want to draw the comparison between the two. I don't see it. It's far from linear. The comparison isn't there. The comparison between the Jets and the Bills, it could not be further from being an adequate one. There is no comparison to be made. So the idea of Robert Saleh being fired further pushing the agenda that McDermott should be fired, it doesn't make any sense to me. But losing to an interim head coach in the New York Jets in a massive Week 6 game on Monday Night Football in prime time certainly furthers the agenda, the heat in the seat. There's no arguing that. There isn't. But nothing's happening in the middle of the year. And if it does, I think that that's pure incompetency. I don't even know why we're talking about this right now, to be honest. We just got down a 15-minute tangent about McDermott. I guess the reason we're talking about it is because this is a huge game for him in terms of you got to win it. But I don't think it's a huge game for him in terms of saving his job going into Week 7. That I don't agree with. Now Dante's saying, okay, Bot, you're saying this now, wait till we lose Monday. I just told you, if we lose Monday, I'm not going to come on here and give you any argument towards defending McDermott. I will argue defending him for the remainder of the year, unless you think that the solution is Bobby Babich or Joe Brady as the interim head coach for the remaining 10 football games of the season. I don't understand how that makes any sense. I will not come on here and defend McDermott if the Bills go out and lay an egg against the Jets Monday night. But I will not come on here and tell you they need to fire him Tuesday morning either. Richie Fresh, you're right about Babbage and Brady, but hear me out. In a suspect AFC East this year, I still think we could win the division. All right, Richie, think about what you're saying here. In a suspect AFC East, you still think we can win the division with Bobby Babbage or Joe Brady at head coach. So why on earth could we not win the division with Sean McDermott at head coach when he's won it the last 4 years in a less suspect AFC East? It doesn't make any sense. I understand the frustration surrounding McDermott right now. I really do. We spent a whole hour yesterday on the smoke break going over the incompetency of what that game looked like at the end. I am well aware of how bad it was. But this doesn't make any sense. And you know it doesn't. You're letting your frustration of Sunday's game get the best of you here. That doesn't make any sense. In a suspect AFC East, I would much rather take my chances with the guy who's won it in 4 consecutive years than my chances with a guy who hasn't even had a full year under his belt as a coordinator for this football team. It doesn't make any sense. $445. I'm going to say the same thing I just said to Richie here. I get no joy out of watching the Bills lose in the playoffs. I think you guys know this. Every year, that is the most depressing episode of the year. You know this. I don't prefer to wait to lose in the playoffs because I don't prefer to lose in the playoffs. I don't want to lose. I prefer to not make a ridiculously rash decision in the middle of the season that makes no sense. That's what I prefer. That's what I prefer. Now, if you prefer to promote Joe Brady or Bobby Babbage to head coach going into week 7, then that's your prerogative. You're entitled to that opinion. I don't agree with it. Just because I feel that way doesn't mean I'm sitting here defending what happened on Sunday or I'm defending the inadequacies that McDermott has showed at big spots. But we constantly do this. We cannot talk about one thing without talking about the other. Yes, these big moments, I talked about it yesterday with the analogy of the mustard stain. The Bills have essentially had a 90% clean, bright white t-shirt since McDermott's taken over. But 10% of that shirt has stains on it. And once there's stains on the shirt, that's all you notice. And that's all we want to notice after games like Sunday. But in totality, the shirt is still 90% white. This team has been the second best team in football the last half decade. Now, if things go terribly the rest of the year, I'm not going to sit here and defend it. It's time to make a switch. I said that in the offseason. I said if the Bills get bounced in the wild card, they don't make the playoffs, they lose in embarrassing fashion again in the divisional, I'm open to the conversation wholeheartedly, 100%. I'm not open to the conversation right now. I'm not. And I don't know how you guys would be either. And I feel like you're not. I feel like you want to change, but do you want to change now? And if you do, ask yourself, do the Bills get better because of that change in the middle of the year? And then ask yourself how you're going to defend the answer to that question being yes, because I don't know where that exists. Richie's saying, because McDermott makes too many critical mistakes. So you're anticipating there will be less critical mistakes from the inevitable interim head coach that hasn't even had a year under his belt as a coordinator? Come on, Richie. Both things can be true. McDermott certainly has his laundry list of critical mistakes in critical moments. But the idea of that not occurring even more so with an interim head coach who hasn't even been a coordinator for this team for a half a year in Bobby Babbage or a full year in Joe Brady, there's no way that just gets better. It doesn't. If you want McDermott, for those who want McDermott gone that bad, you got to wait till the end of the year. Because if you truly want the best for the Buffalo Bills, and I know we all do, if you truly want what's best for the Bills, then you can't possibly want McDermott fired in the middle of the year. You know, like, let me give you an example. Which, by the way, the Chiefs last night, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. Juju Smith-Schuster last night looked like Randy Moss. And we sit around here and bitch about the lack of weapons for the Bills. The Chiefs are now 5-0 with their best receiver being Juju Smith-Schuster. Rashee Rice out for the year. Pacheco out for the year. I know Kelsey played really well last night, but up until last night, he looked like his age. So say the Bills were in the same spot as they are currently, but Andy Reid was the coach and Steve Spagnuolo was the defensive coordinator. Then maybe I'd hear you out because Steve Spagnuolo is a seasoned veteran in this league. He's been in this league longer than I've been alive. And he's a former head coach. I know it was a disastrous stint as a head coach, but a former head coach nonetheless. I'd hear you out on maybe allowing a former head coach and a beyond seasoned veteran coordinator to maybe fill in if you wanted to do something midseason. I cannot listen to any idea of Bobby Babbitt or Joe Brady being an interim head coach of this football team in its current state. There's just no way. You'd have to have somebody in the wings that is prepared for that moment. Nobody on the Bills currently is. Tyler saying, I agree, Bob. McDermott getting fired midseason, no shot. There's zero shot. I can't tell you how. You can never say no shot. You can never say zero. But to me, it's as close to the number zero as you can be. I mean, to me, it's a decimal point over. It's not zero, but it's like 0.1 to me. I cannot stress to you enough how stunned beyond belief I would be if that were to occur. It just makes no sense. Richie's saying, not trying to piss you off, but there's no great time to pull a plug. Is midseason bad? Yes. But I just don't know what to think anymore. You're not pissing me off at all, Richie. You're airing your grievances as we all are. You're frustrated. Everybody's frustrated right now. You're not pissing me off. We're all pissed off in general. Of course we are. Did you watch Sunday? If you don't get pissed off about Sunday, you're probably not as big of a Bills fan as you think you are. Every Bills fan, I'm not saying you got to put your whole, I'm not saying you got to put, I was about to say a hole through your fist. I guess you could do that too. I'm not saying you got to put your fist through the wall and knock a hole in your living room. But every Bills fan, every diehard Bills fan is at least somewhat pissed about what's occurred on Sunday. Everybody is. That's why you gotta not allow that to factor into your thinking. I agree with you in the sense that there is no great time to pull a plug. There really isn't. But what the Jets just did to me is a perfect example of a bad time to pull the plug. I don't get it. There's no great time to pull a plug, but in my opinion, there is a bad time to pull a plug. Right? There's worse times to pull a plug than others. You never want to go without power, but if you pull a plug in a dry living room, whatever, you're without power, but at least you're safe. If you pull a plug in a living room that's flooding with water pouring in from a storm, probably not a good idea because you could get electrocuted. I think the Bills pulling the plug on McDermott after week 6 would be the equivalent of pulling a plug in the middle of a rainstorm. You would be doing nothing but further expanding the issue. Josh is saying, can we talk about Joe Brady? Getting some Ken Dorsey vibes. The last 2 weeks have looked identical to Ken Dorsey. It's amazing to me. Joe Brady has been the polar opposite of Ken Dorsey since he took over. That's why these last 2 weeks have been stunning. Now, of course, there was always... Joe Brady wasn't going to win 95% of his regular season games like the pace he was on to start out here. There was always going to be a moment where it's looked bad. It's the fact that it compounded from 1 week to the next this past 2 weeks. That has been the problem for me. Because there seemingly was no awareness of the issues that needed to be attended to, and there was seemingly no awareness of the situational football being played within the game. The lack of situational awareness last week on that final drive was just beyond comprehensible to me. If you missed the show yesterday, go back. I go over the all-22 angle of the final drive for the Bills offense, the final 2 drives for the Bills offense. And it just makes no sense. And the reason I think you get Ken Dorsey vibes is because it felt like Ken Dorsey in moments such as that would draw up those deep shots. Like it could be like 3rd and 3, and Dorsey would dial up a deep ball. And you're just thinking, what are we doing? Why? Why are we doing this? The Bills did that 3 straight times this past week in a situation that could not have called for anything further from what they wound up going with on the play sheet. I mean, it's a huge week for so many. It's a huge week for so many reasons this week, and one of those reasons is for Joe Brady. This is a rough patch for Joe Brady, and we all have him in our lives. We all have him in our careers. Joe Brady's currently having his. But the thing is, the difference between our careers and the career in the NFL is your rough patch can probably last a little longer at your day job than it can in the NFL. Ask Robert Saleh. He just started 2-3, and the defense is looking pretty damn good. He's unemployed today. Ken Dorsey has got to have something schemed up to find a way to beat this Jets defense Monday, and that's the thing that adds even more, anxiety to this game is that this defense they're about to face in the Jets is the best of the 3 defenses they'll have faced the last 3 weeks, and they've looked bad against the previous 2. This is a real tough game, and it's a real pressure-packed game too, in my opinion. This is the NFL has to be stoked that this one is standalone primetime on Monday night, because this is must-see television on Monday night for so many reasons, for both the Jets and the Bills. It is a huge game. Nick's coming in. I don't know if Bean would ever let McDermott go, let alone midseason. Their relationship is too close, and for everyone wanting him fired, be careful what you wish for. Bingo. For starters, I'm not entirely sure if Bean even. I don't know if Bean has. I don't know if Bean has the power to fire McDermott. That they came in as a package deal, and they've felt like a package deal ever since they've come in. Bean would have to really, really, really advocate for the firing of McDermott for him to be fired, especially midseason. In order for that to occur, Bean would have to essentially go to Terry Pagula and beg him, get on his hands and knees and beg him to fire McDermott. That's not happening. They have a very close relationship. They were brought in together. They felt like a package deal since the beginning. It's because they are. Pagula would have to make that call, and it feels like Bean, if he has any power in the situation at all, would basically have, like I just said, he would have to literally beg for it. And I don't think we're at that point yet. That would be a call from Pagula. And we heard from Tim Graham last year. If you remember, Tim Graham had the inside exclusive on it. Tim Graham wrote via The Athletic that Terry Pagula has no interest at all of firing McDermott. Now, we know things will change. This league is the king of deception. You're told one thing, and the next week you have no idea. I mean, for God's sake, going into week 1, everyone had already drafted Christian McCaffrey #1 overall in their fantasy leagues, and he was a game-time decision for week 1 against the Jets. We're going into week 6. He hasn't suited up once. He hasn't been on the field once. And every time you hear something about McCaffrey, it gets worse and worse. We don't even know if McCaffrey's going to play at all this year. So you're told he's going to be ready to go. Then you're told he's a game-time decision. Then you're told he's not going to play. Then you're told he might not play the whole year. That's the NFL for you. So could Terry Pagula change his mind? Of course. I don't think he changes his mind. Week 6. Fluffy. He's saying crazy. Adam Schefter was just on McAfee yesterday swearing on a Bible that everything was fine between Rodgers and Saleh. And the shove was just because a head coach had banned her. See, there you go. Fluffy's coming in with an example of his own. Yesterday's fine. Today it couldn't be. So to your point about McDermott and Pagula, things change. I don't think they change drastically enough to go from we have no interest in making any move here to we're going to make a move here in week 6 and then promote an inexperienced coordinator to take over the team for the rest of the year with a team that currently is 4th place in the AFC. Scotty saying, Z-Bot, with all that happened on Sunday, you think Josh will be ready for Monday night? Not only that, do you think do you think we'll get our players back, hopefully, for the Jets game? We have Bernard back already. Teron Johnson and Khalil Shakir are the two to keep the biggest eye on, I would say, and Ed Oliver, of course. Based on what McDermott said yesterday, I couldn't get the best read on it in terms of Teron Johnson or Khalil Shakir. He said what I feel like we always hear, and they're improving. I don't know. You could tell how badly they missed Shakir. The blitz was not getting home against Stroud on Sunday. Stroud was carving the Bills up against the blitz. I think he was 9 of 10 against full-blown blitzes. So he certainly can't hurt to have Ed Oliver back out there. And then we know how much Teron Johnson means in the backfield, and they need him back out there. I mean, you saw the impact alone of just having Terrell Bernard back last week. He made one of the plays of the day. That interception was incredible, and it flipped the game to allow the Bills to even have an opportunity. So you have to hope. The jury's out right now. Now, in terms of Allen will be fine. Is Allen going to play better? That's the question. The bar's not very high. It would be next to impossible for Allen to play as bad on Monday as he played this past Sunday. But we know, unfortunately, Allen has saved some of his worst performances for the New York Jets. That can't happen on Monday night. Regardless of how bad the Jets have looked at times this year, especially offensively, if Josh Allen has a performance like he did on Sunday on this upcoming Monday night, the Bills don't really have a chance, because that defense is far better than what they just played in Houston, and it's better than what they played in the Baltimore Ravens. Allen has got to play better Monday. Everything has to be better Monday. The coaching has to be better. The offensive line play has to be better. I understand the talent is not that of the greatest show on turf, but the offensive wide receiver core, the wide receiver core has got to be better. The involvement of the tight ends has got to be better. I mean, this is what kills me about the Chiefs last night. You got 35-year-old Travis Kelce looking as old as he actually is through the first 4 weeks. Last night, Travis Kelce had 9 receptions, I think, 8 or 9 receptions before halftime. They get him open. And I was on the phone with Rico, or I was texting with Rico last night about the Chiefs game, because we were talking about Kincaid. And I had said, it feels like nothing's ever designed solely to get Kincaid the ball or solely to get him involved. Last night, with no other X factor on that offense for the Chiefs other than Juju Smith-Schuster, they were able to get Travis Kelce open enough to catch 8 or 9 balls before half. So a lot has to be better this upcoming Monday. A ton. And that's why this game is so big. That's why this game is absolutely massive. And Dante's saying, yep, because of coaching. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. But once again, that doesn't mean, I know what you're saying, Dante. I see your second comment here. I understand. So in your opinion, does Joe Brady taking over at head coach when they fire McDermott, which clearly seems like what you want? When Joe Brady takes over as offensive coordinator, does all of a sudden Dalton Kincaid have 9 catches at halftime? Because why wouldn't he now? McDermott's not calling the offense, and there's nobody coming in to save the day to call the offense if McDermott gets fired, not named Joe Brady. You're comparing Sean McDermott, a defensive-minded head coach, to Andy Reid, an offensive genius, one of the greatest offensive coaches of all time. Now, if your argument is at the end of the year, you want McDermott gone and you want an offensive coordinator, an offensive head coach in there, I've been hearing people out on that. That's been the argument all along. And like I said, at the end of the year, if we get to that point again, I'm ready. I'm ready to consider it. I'm 100% ready to see what these Bills can do with an offensive coach. But that's not happening right now. What has to happen is Joe Brady has to make it happen. And we can't sit here and act like Joe Brady's done a poor job. He's done a terrific job up until the last 2 weeks. He's done a terrific job. But now the pressure's on and the difficulty has been raised. What can he do then? And we're going to find out. There is so much going into Monday that makes this game incredibly interesting, and I can't wait for it. And this firing today of Robert Saleh is one more thing that absolutely makes this game not only massive, but must-see television for people who aren't even a Jets or Bills fan. This game is huge. All right, an hour in the books. I just wanted to come in and recap today's breaking news. Robert Saleh fired as the New York Jets head coach. The Jets defensive coordinator, Jeff Aldrich, takes over as interim head coach. And it all happens the week the Bills take on the Jets on Monday Night Football. Craziness. No sleep in the NFL. And we won't sleep all week this week. We're going to be talking all week long about Bills Jets. Rico will be on with you later tonight. Rico and I will be on with you together later in the week, and we'll be talking all about this throughout the week. So on your way out, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. And, of course, make sure to take advantage of that 150% sign-up bonus via BetUS. The promo code is YouTube150. That gets you a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your initial deposit and 125% bonus on your 2 deposits after that. Robert Saleh out, and the Bills are coming to town. It's going to be a crazy week. Can't wait to talk more about it with you later in the week. Rico can't wait to talk about it with you tonight. Make sure to tune into him as well. Much love to you guys. Over 1,300 of you tuning in on a Tuesday morning. Craziness. Much love to all of you. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk to you later in the week. And as always, go Bills.